Hey TEAL 5500, I wanted to give you a quick guide to the lesson plan rubric to help you understand exactly what I'm looking for when I grade your lesson plans that are coming up soon. So first things first, before you watch the video, hop on to Experience 5. If you scroll about halfway down the page, there's this right here. This is a link to the exact rubric that we'll be using for your lesson plans. So please pause the video, go through and check through the rubric, and then come back and watch this to kind of get some of my thoughts and insights. With the lesson plan, there's 4 overall goals that we want you to achieve through these lesson plans. We want you to be able to present a creative and engaging lesson plan. We want you to demonstrate that you can leverage technology to teach the state core. We want you to exhibit proficiency in using that technology. And we want your final product to have professionalism and a high standard of quality. So those are the 4 goals it's subdivided into. Goal 1.1, the exact wording is, the lesson is creative and engaging for the targeted students. Because this is a technology integration class, I define creative and engaging based off of the SAMR model. So if you want full credit on goal 1.1, your lesson plan needs to be on the M or the R level. If it's at the S or the A, it might not get full, well, it won't get full credit. If it's at the S or A, you won't have points on this one. So get that lesson plan to the M or the R level. You can go back to Experience 2 to brush up on that, or you can just perform a Google search if you need more information. Goal 1.2, the lesson is age appropriate for the age or grade level chosen. I don't want to have to infer this. You need to type this out you need to explicitly explain why your lesson is age appropriate. So what that means is that you need to list how it's appropriate for both the age and the grade. So the age is where your student is at developmentally. What skills does a 10th grader possess that's going to allow them to be successful in this lesson? Or sorry, not a 10th grader, a 15-year-old. What skills does a 14-year-old that's going to allow them to be successful for this lesson? Grade is based more on things that they've learned in school. So, age is just like their normal growth trajectory, what skills they have. Grade is what they've learned in school that's going to help them be successful. So have you already taught them how to perform web searches? Have you already taught them how to use the tool that they're using? Do they already have background knowledge in the math unit that they're doing so they're not starting out from scratch with it? What have you already taught them that's going to enable them to be successful? This is something that goes well in the reflection. If you want to put a reflection bit at the end, you can tell why it was age appropriate for the grade and age. So this is a good chunk for the reflection. 1.3. This is probably the trickiest one in the whole rubric to understand. So the lesson integrates technology tools and or other planned resources effectively to manage the students or the lesson experience, assess teaching or the student performance. How I managing the student or lesson experience, it's similar to goal 1.2, is that you need to show me how you are going, like what you've done before this lesson that is going to make this lesson successful. So if you are using, if you're having students do research and create posters on LucidChart, or LucidPress, you would want to teach them LucidPress before actually having them do it for the first time. And that's a great way to get points for that, is showing that you've already taught the students how to use the tool in a separate lesson, so that way when it comes to engaging it with content, that they can just roll right in and go with the content. So what are you going to do before the lesson that's going to make the lesson successful? And this goes good in the lesson plan part. And then second thing, you need to assess the student learning. So your assessment can be technology based with like Kahoot or Plickers, or there's tons of great ones out there. But you need to demonstrate that you have measured how much your students have learned in this lesson plan. Goal 2.1, the exact wording is, the Utah core standards and objectives are specifically cited in the lesson. So that means you must state verbatim the Utah core standard your lesson is rooted in. So find a standard that you may potentially be teaching one day and list it out word for word in your lesson plan. You also, to get full points, must restate the core in plain speak. So whether that's just kind of watering it down so it's a little bit easier so that parents and students and your administrator, everyone's on the same page with exactly what is required in this lesson, or whether it's you type it up as a learning goal or outcome, such as a student will be able to. That will work fine for restating your interpretation of what that core standard means for this lesson. Goal 2.2, the teacher provided a clear explanation about how the technologies relate to the standards in the lesson. And this must be explicit. Sometimes students kind of let this one sneak by, but type out a couple sentences. Again, this one goes well in the reflection, that describe my technology met my standards because of X, Y, and Z. And that's a really great thing. You know, some students have a great lesson, but then they only use technology to assess, and that's not, we want the technology to integrate the standard. And so that, I hope that makes sense. But how did your technology meet the standards? How did you use the technology to meet the Utah State Core Standard? And again, that's just a couple sentences, and the reflection is good enough for Goal 2.2. Goal 3.1, the teacher can use the technologies described in their lesson. So whichever technology you're using, you need to demonstrate that you're proficient with it. I love a screencast. That's my go-to. So throw in a screencast of you demonstrating actually similar to what the students would be doing for the lesson. So that way, if this lesson plan was viewed by any other teacher in your same shoes, they could look at your lesson plan, take a quick view of your screencast, and be able to run right with the lesson plan. So the screencast is a great way to demonstrate your proficiency with the technology. 3.2, using working and relevant multimedia images. So images, hyperlinks, videos, audio to demonstrate the technology integrated. So all that means you just need to include those things and that they should add value. So you can, in addition to your screencast, you can link to other resources on YouTube, or you can link to another page or a blog that has more information about a similar thing that you're trying to do. But it's important to make these accessible for the reader. These lesson plans are not meant to be consumed for individual use. They are meant to be presented so that, like almost published, so that any teacher in your same spot, kind of like with Goal 3.1, could look at this lesson plan, digest it quickly, and be able to run with it. And so you do need to have links and images and videos and audio that are going to help us. It needs to be like the one-stop shop to get that lesson plan done. And that one multimedia PDF, anyone can take your lesson plan and integrate it in their own class. Goal 4, the exact wording. The teacher's lesson was clear and organized well, and that there's no spelling, grammar, punctuation, or punctuation errors. And so all that means is make it look professional. Sometimes students kind of get caught up on this. We're not looking for, like, this isn't a graphic design class. I'm not looking for it to be over the top, aesthetically pleasing, but I do want it to be aesthetically pleasing. I am firm on that, because if it is well designed and appealing to the eye, it is easier for the consumer to digest. And teachers are people that are very, very busy, and so the quicker me as a teacher, if I'm looking at a lesson plan that I want to teach in my class, I need to be able to kind of get the gist of it in 10 or 15 seconds and then choose, do I want it, do I not want it? And if I do want it, be able to dig in and everything's in that one spot and it looks great so that I can run with it. So we do want it to look professional. A couple of tips. We've really built up to this. We've done shared docs, and we've done screencasts, we've done multimedia PDFs. You know, those are all kind of converging into this lesson experience. So make sure to include all of those. Assume nothing. If it's on the rubric, it needs to be explicitly in the lesson plan, because then I don't have to make the judgment of, is it there, is it not there? If it's there, then it's there, and that's really easy for me to see. So watch the ones that are especially good in the reflection. Make sure to write those out explicitly. And then again, the main idea behind these lesson plans, that the lesson plan could be given to any educator of the same content area, and that teacher could proficiently teach the lesson plan. So that's why we want them to be organized in the way that we do, with extra links to resources, with screencasts, designed well, is because that's going to help your fellow colleagues be able to implement it in their own classroom. Turn in the self-assessment. I do want you to self-assess. Every lesson plan we do, you're going to turn in a self-assessment with it. So make sure to download one or add it to your drive off of the class website, edit it, and then turn that in with your lesson plan. Just do 2 separate attachments. And then last one, I just asked no recycled lesson plans. I realize that you do lesson plans for other classes. Just please make this one a unique new one, is what I ask. So if you have any questions about what is required for this lesson plan, please feel free to let me know. In this announcement, there's lots of great resources as well. I highly recommend, here on the rubric, you can view examples that are above sufficient, sufficient, and below sufficient to kind of help you get a feel for it. And there's also in the TEAL 5500 in the resources, there's there's in this tab you can find examples of other lesson plans that have been done. So I hope that helps, and if you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll be glad to help out. Thanks for a great semester.